I don't know about you guys, but for this entire year, I've been super pumped up for this card. I know it's going to be guaranteed violence. I think the matchmakers did an amazing job with the main event. I think that's a fight of the year contender for sure. At first, I was really disappointed that Condit versus Brown wasn't going to happen anymore because Brown got injured. But the replacement, Alex Oliveira, is just as good as Matt Brown, in my opinion. I think we're going to have the same level of violence and the same potential to have a finish. So, no complaints there. A couple of different websites have different main cards, but as of right now, this is the official main card on the UFC's website. So these are the 4 fights I'm going to predict. And without any further ado, let's get right into those predictions. For the first fight on the main card, we have a women's strawweight matchup, Michelle Waterson versus Cortney Casey. So the way I see this matchup playing out is Cortney Casey winning in the striking exchanges. Cortney has great boxing. You especially could see that in her last fight against Felice Herrig. I personally felt like she beat Felice Herrig, but obviously the judges did not agree. I think Michelle has great striking as well, but I think Courtney's boxing skills, along with her height and reach advantage, will give her the advantage on the feet. I think that if Michelle starts taking big shots, she's going to attempt to take the fight on the ground, which would be a smart thing to do, but I think Courtney's size advantage is going to be enough to be able to stuff Michelle's takedowns. So the way I see this happening is Courtney beating Michelle in the striking exchanges for 3 rounds and picking up a decision victory. I just feel like along with her significant size advantage, Courtney has more power and is more dangerous than Michelle Waterson. Michelle has been susceptible to submissions in the past, and Courtney has also got a fair share of submission victories on her record. But like I said, the way I see this playing out is Courtney winning in the striking exchanges, not being taken down by Michelle, and ultimately winning a decision victory. Next up, we have a highly anticipated matchup for me personally, because if you watched my Hype Trains Who Will Be Exposed in 2018 video, you will remember that Israel was probably the main guy I talked about. So if you consistently keep up with mixed martial arts, you've probably noticed the push that Israel Adesanya is getting promotion-wise by the UFC. People are saying he's going to be the next, John Jones, or his fighting style's like John Jones, and he's going to be a future champ who can beat most of the top-ranked middleweights already. And essentially, I just don't really buy into all that. I think he has a lot of holes in his game, especially on the ground. And in terms of this matchup, I think the matchmakers did a horrible job if they want to promote Israel, because the guy they're putting him up against, Marvin Vettori, has a fair amount of submission victories on his record, and also he's never been knocked out. He has a great chin, and he's a big middleweight. Israel's tall for a middleweight, but he doesn't really cut that much weight. He's kind of skinny. I think in grappling exchanges in this fight, Marvin is going to be able to bully Israel around just like Rob Wilkinson did. Marvin also has a really good gas tank, so I think he would be able to keep up the grappling. If Marvin's smart, this is what he would do. He would just go out there, take down Israel, because obviously in the 2 months ago that Israel was fighting and had a lot of holes in his grappling game, he's not going to have improved a lot. I don't want anyone to think that I'm blatantly disrespecting Israel's kickboxing accomplishments, because he's a very good kickboxer. He has good striking, and I could see him picking apart Marvin and getting a decision, but that's personally my only method that I think he could win the fight with. I don't really see him knocking out Marvin because, like I said, Marvin's never been knocked out before, and he's big, and he's got a good chin. So again, the way I see this fight playing out is Israel trying to pick Marvin apart on the outside with some big shots, some precise striking, but Marvin will be able to get on the inside of that reach, get the takedown, and grind Israel out on the ground and secure submission and get the victory. Also, since Israel has all of this hype behind him, I'm assuming that he's going to be the huge favorite, so expect an upset victory, guys. For the co-main event, we have veteran and legend Carlos Condit versus Alex Oliveira. I'm not 100% sure if Carlos Condit is still the co-main event, but I know he was originally, and I put him in my intro as the co-main event, so even if he's not, just deal with it. Even though Alex is taking this fight on short notice, I still think it's a really dangerous matchup for Carlos. Based on Carlos's last fight, unfortunately, I have to say that he's a lot slower reflex-wise, and he couldn't get his distance, he couldn't get his timing down. And that just probably comes with age and taking so much time off. But based on Alex Oliveira's past performances, I'd still say that Carlos Condit has the better striking. In Alex's last fight against Yancy Medeiros, I thought it was his fight to win, but he left himself way too open. He was swinging big shots, and he ended up getting his nose broken, which I feel like was ultimately what led to his stoppage. So I would say Alex would have a good chance against Carlos if he had tightened up his striking, stopped swinging so wildly, and worked in the clinch. But obviously, he didn't even have like half of a full camp to prepare for this. So if this fight stays on the feet, I'm going to say that Carlos wins by decision. The only place that I could see Alex presenting some problems for Carlos is if Alex decides to grapple and go for takedowns. In Carlos's last fight against Neil Magny, I think the only reason he lost is because he couldn't really get his timing and distance because Neil kept engaging in the grappling situations and getting takedowns. And obviously, if you're a great striker like Carlos, it doesn't really matter if you're flat on your back. But what I think is most likely is Carlos to come out with his fast-paced striking, and Alex Oliveira, who didn't have a full camp, will not be able to keep up and will eventually crack under the pressure and be susceptible to some big shots. So I'm going to say Carlos Condit wins by decision. And finally, for the main event, we have one of the fights that I'm the most excited about this year. A fight of the year contender for sure. This is probably my pick for fight of the year. We have Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje is a guy with an extremely high-pressure fighting style. He has an insane output of strikes. He lands about 9 strikes per minute. He has a great chin, and he has chopping leg kicks, but he's fighting probably the best Dustin Poirier that we've ever seen. Dustin has great striking, great defense, great head movement, and he most recently put away a legend and former champion in Anthony Pettis. So I'd say both of these guys are sort of at the pinnacles of their careers. They're in their primes, and I think this is the perfect time for them to clash, and I think they're going to put on an amazing performance for us. But based on what we know about both of these guys, I'm going to have to give the slight edge to Dustin Poirier, and let me tell you why. Justin Gaethje is an extremely dangerous guy. He has a lot of power, and like I said, he has an insane output for strikes, but he has a problem with his gas tank. I'd say that Justin is only dangerous for definitely the first round, probably about the first 2 rounds. He's still dangerous, can still knock you out. But when he gasses out, he's really, really easy to hit, and he gets a lot slower. That's how Eddie Alvarez was able to pick him apart. Eddie didn't take the big shots for the first round, and Justin kept getting more and more gassed until he was just susceptible to get hit with a huge knee that eventually put him away. Even in Justin's UFC victory against Michael Johnson, he gassed out pretty badly in that fight, and it was about midway through the second round. But Michael Johnson gassed out too, so Justin was able to land a couple more strikes, and he broke Michael Johnson in that fight. However, I don't think Dustin Poirier is going to go down like that. I think Dustin's going to have to evade some big shots for about, like I said, the first 2 rounds. But then after that, he's just going to slip and rip. And eventually his pressure, Dustin's pressure, because Dustin has a high output too. He lands about 5 strikes per minute. He's going to be able to hit the easy target in Justin Gaethje in those later rounds. And personally, I think Dustin Poirier will be able to get a 4th or 5th round stoppage. I really don't think this is going to go to the judges. But even if it did, I'd probably give Dustin the slight edge there too with a decision. But my prediction is Dustin Poirier by 4th or 5th round TKO.